Welcome back guys to a brand new video. As you can see just here, this is my very own DIY hydraulic press. I made this in a previous video, so I will link it down in the description below. So if you want to go and check that out, you can. So today what I'll be doing is building my very own press brake for this unit just here. I've got the metal just over there, so let's go and take a look at what I've purchased from EZI Metal at Heatherbrae, which is my local metal supplier. So let's go and check that out and I'll show you what my plans are in making this press brake. Alrighty guys, so as you can see in front of me, I've got some 10mm plate here, which is 200mm wide. This is going to be the base for the press brake. This is going to be the wedge that comes down to bend the steel into the form. It is 12mm thick by 100mm wide. So this will be placed up here on some slides and it will come down. It will have a V on one of the edges just here that I'll grind down, and it will come down and form the steel into the 90-degree angle that I want. So that's what that's for there. This bar here is 36mm. I chose that because that is the size that suits this 42mm 0.4 or approximate pipe there with 2.4mm wall thickness. So this has a seam inside of it, so it's not perfectly round there. It's got a rolled seam there, but it does fit nice onto that pipe just there. So that is the reason that I chose that, because when I place these on the side just there, I will have obviously it cut down a lot smaller and it'll be connected to the side of this bar here with that bar vertical, and it will slide up and down. So the next part is the 50x50 angle iron just there. It is 6mm thick, so it should be plenty strong enough. But what that is for is I'm going to cut that down and it will be placed on this metal just here in two sections, which will give me that 90-degree inner portion just there that I'll be pressing down into. I am going to try and make this a little bit more personalized for myself with the Arcdroid CNC, the mag drill, and my new lathe, just so I can get some use out of those tools because it's a bit of fun. I have seen the design on the websites for these tool places that this will be modeled off, but I'm gonna give it my own personal flair, so let's get into it. you guys have probably been wondering why I've machined that edge down on there. It is because in videos I've seen before of people doing DIY press brakes, they've placed the rod on the metal there and had to square it up, and then have had to battle with the contraction of when you weld it wanting to pull left or right. So what I've done is I've machined a groove there so that I can place that in there, chuck it in the press and press it down flat, and it should hold it there perfectly vertical. So fingers crossed, let's give that a go. Alright guys, so I would call that a success. It's in there nice and tight, it's not really going anywhere. If I was to hit it pretty hard, I would be able to manipulate it, so when it comes time to welding it, I will check the angles because it will probably pull a little bit, but it was a lot of fun using the lathe over there, so let's do the next one. Alrighty, it's time to do the second one. I'm not sure if everyone knows this little trick, but if you're trying to measure in between two areas with a tape measure, I always used to go like that and sort of try to judge whatever was the closest millimeter to the bit just there. But I learnt on TikTok, of all places, the other day that your tape measure actually has millimeters written on it, which is the body width from there to the resting edge just there. So this one is 99 millimeters. So if I put that just between there, and I've got 436, it's almost 100 millimeters extra. So 536 is the width that I need to shorten this down to. So before I fully weld all this together, I have noticed some other videos where they've brought those together, welded it up, and when they've pressed it, it's overbent the angle or underbent the angle. So I'm gonna have a play around with it. So tack it into place, have it close, use it. Once I get the side slides on, use it, and then see what sort of angle we get. And then if it's not quite at 90, I will pull it back a bit because of the metal deflection. I'll pull it back a bit so it will overbend the angle and then spring back to 90. So we'll have a play around with that and we'll see what works. Alright guys, so we've got this all welded up now. Now that it's cooled down and it's contracted, it does fit correctly on here. If I square that up nicely, you can see that if it's used squarely, it will work perfectly fine. So the next thing to do is to create the section there that the press will come down and come in contact with. Alright, so as you've seen before, I've only tacked these angle iron parts in place just to give it a test to see whether we actually achieve that 90 degrees of angle when we press it. And if I'm happy with it, I'll take it back over there and finish welding both sides of that. So let's just give this a good quick go, measure the angle of the metal and see how it performs. This is 1.8mm sheet steel, so let's give that a go. So first impressions, I can see that that has overbent the angle quite a bit. As it came down into that V, I noticed that it just kept folding past the 90 degrees. So I need to address that before we continue. So to make sense of this, I measured the angle of the bit of metal that I bent just there, and it's about 85 degrees. And then I went ahead and measured the angle of the ground tip of that just there, and it's actually very similar to, it's about 81, 83 degrees there. So the issue is that I need to make this a more finer tip so that we don't underbend, so that we don't overbend the corner. So I'm gonna get the grinder and grind those edges down a bit more of an angle. All right, I've changed the angle of the plate that goes across there to being a bit more blunt. So off camera, I tried out that other thinner bit of metal and I was happy with the results. You just need to watch how hard you press down and how the metal's bending. And I've got 2.8mm flat bar just there. I'm gonna give that a crack and see how that goes. So as you can see just there, it started to lift. That's sort of the indicator to me that we're right on that 90 degrees. So let's let it off. It'll always have a bit of spring back. I think that turned out pretty well. Could be a bit more crisp in the corner, but I'm happy with that. This is 8mm flat bar. Let's see how that goes. So that was 8mm flat bar. That worked amazing. I'm actually pretty shocked with how I've accidentally ground the press bar into the right angle on the tip to equal a near perfect 90-degree bend on something that is 8 millimeters thick. Now the jack maxed out its pressure on this bit of metal. I didn't stop and try not to overbend or underbend this. That is how it ended up. So absolutely stoked with that. The thinner stuff you can overbend, but you just got to keep an eye on it. But the thicker stuff, the ground on that bar is perfect for what I want to do in the future for the thick stuff. There's one last thing that I need to do to check off on this build is the fact that I don't have springs here to lift this unit up after I finish pressing. What I've decided to do is make a collet that will weld onto there and then sleeve over the ram of the press, and then I'll have a grip bolt that goes in the side that grips to the press, and when the press lifts, it should lift this up with it. So fingers crossed, let's give that a go. So there's the collet that I made there. We've got two M8 bolts that just pinch the shaft top and bottom just there to pull that upwards. But what I plan on doing in the future is purchasing some springs that go under there, but I need to find the right size and the right spring rate so that it can overcome the weight of that, because it is quite heavy. That is a 12 millimeter plate, so I'm gonna look into that, but that'll be a future upgrade. Alright guys, that's a wrap for this video. There you have my DIY press brake. I didn't use springs because I didn't have any and I couldn't get any of the size that fit the post that I had there, but the clamp mechanism that this bottle jack then pulls up on it worked very well. So remember, if you like this video, like, subscribe and comment down below. I get back to absolutely everyone. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one.